role of the flight director in mission control is a lot like a conductor of an orchestra, or something along that nature, because we've got this team of people in the control room that are all focusing on different aspects of the spacecraft or the mission. It could be the timeline, it could be the power systems, everything that makes the mission work. And they're reporting all that information both to each other to make sure they understand what's happening in the entire mission, but then also up to a single person who's actually in charge of not only the mission, but then also the spacecraft and the lives of the crew that are in space. And that person's the flight director. And the International Space Station is obviously an international partnership. So there's 5 control rooms around the world that operate similarly to what I just described, each of them having their own type of flight director for their control room. Here in Houston at the Johnson Space Center, our job is not only to manage the American modules of the space station, but we're also the overall lead control center. So the flight director here, which is my job, is not only to manage the U.S. laboratory components, but then also the lead flight director for the entire International Space Station when I'm on console. How do we take computer games and first acknowledge the fact that they're there, and they are much more immersive than they were, say, even 5 years ago, and then also leverage them in an education environment or in a real-world application environment? And one great example is mission control. Those of us that fly the space station, we don't get the opportunity to go up into space. We don't get to go work there for a few weeks to learn what it's like and then come back down to Earth. We learn everything through simulation. We control the space station through the click of a mouse. It's very similar to a video game. And that's where there's also a difference. And so now we have a generation of new flight controllers that came up in these immersive gaming. And part of our education process to make sure they understand the difference between where the simulation ends and reality begins. And there are really real people living on the space station, and a click of a mouse in the wrong direction could cause bad consequences for real people. So you can't really turn away from the whole video game environment that we've come into, because there are a lot of great things you can leverage. And we've modified how we train both the astronauts on the space station even, as well as the flight controllers, to take advantage of that. But as always, you have to ground the human beings to make sure that there is a distinction between the immersive world, but still the digital world you're being involved in, and the real life, still interacting with real people component. So that's always going to be a bit of tension, I think, as the technology gets more immersive, but one that we have to maintain. So looking back on my own life up to this point, and the fact that I'm still a fanboy when it comes to doing what I'm doing, and I just love coming to work. I think about how my path was to get here, and certainly I was inspired by others, but I also had to do things myself. And as I realized I wanted to work at NASA, and I wanted to work in mission control, and I wanted to get to where I could say that I help people in space, because that's really what I do. It's just awesome. There were a lot of challenges, and some of those challenges came back with answers of, that is really hard, that there's an easier path. Or sometimes the answer was no, it's just not going to work. And so my mentors helped me, and I just had this approach to life, and that's what I want to really inspire other people with, is if you really want it, keep going for it, and keep trying to find ways to do it. I really wanted to be a foreign exchange student and go live in Germany for a year when I was going to high school. My parents were not really thrilled with that idea. And I could have had a first conversation with them, and we kind of all said, no, let's not, and then just let it go. But I really wanted to do it. And so I did my own research, find out what this is really about, what it really would entail, what would it cost. I had to work for it, and convince my parents that it would be okay. And throughout college as well, the projects I got involved in, I had to do the extra work, go the extra mile. But because I was chasing something I was passionate about, that kept me motivated. So that's my one thing, is keep motivated, and don't take no to mean no permanently. Just find a different way to do it.